I left him. Cold. Heartless. Without a word. I just packed my bags, slammed the door, and disappeared. No note. No explanation. Nothing. And the craziest part? I still loved him. I wasn't running away from the man I married. I was running away from the truth I found out 2 days before our anniversary. The kind of truth that destroys everything. The kind that burns through your chest and leaves you hollow. We were the perfect couple on paper. Ethan and I met at a mutual friend's wedding in Miami. He was the best man, I was the maid of honor. We ended up dancing all night, drunk on champagne and laughter. 2 months later, we moved in together. 6 months in, we got married on a cliff in Malibu, barefoot, smiling like idiots in love. We had no money. No plan. But we had each other. At least, that's what I thought. Our first year of marriage was chaos. He worked construction. I was a waitress. We barely scraped by, but somehow that made it romantic. We fought. We made up. We made love on the kitchen floor, under the stars, in the back seat of his beat-up truck. But then things started to shift. He started staying out late. Working more hours. Coming home smelling like sawdust and cigarettes even though he didn't smoke. He wouldn't look me in the eye when I asked him how his day was. My gut twisted. I told myself it was stress. Money problems. Exhaustion. But I knew. I knew something was off. It all came crashing down on a Thursday. I was folding laundry when his phone buzzed. He never left it lying around, but that day he forgot it on the kitchen counter. One message. That's all it took. Can't stop thinking about last night. Same time tomorrow. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped the phone. I couldn't breathe. I didn't even cry. I just froze. I confronted him that night. Calmly. Too calmly. He denied it. Said it was a wrong number. A prank. I didn't believe him. But I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I didn't even ask for details. I just left. I moved to Portland, changed my number, started over. Waitressing again. Living in a cheap studio apartment with paper-thin walls and a leaky faucet. And I tried to forget him. Tried to forget the man I married. But the problem was, he didn't forget me. And a year later, he showed up on my doorstep. With tears in his eyes. With a letter in his hand. And with something I never expected. Proof that he never cheated on me. I didn't open the door right away. I just stood there, barefoot on the hardwood floor, staring at his face through the peephole. He looked destroyed. Not just tired. Not just sad. Ruined. Hair longer. Beard rough. Shoulders slumped like he hadn't stood up straight since I left. He didn't knock again. He just waited. After 5 minutes of me whispering to myself, don't open it, don't open it, don't open it, I opened it. Slowly. Just a crack. He looked up. And when our eyes met, I swear to God, it was like every emotion I'd buried for the past year came flooding back all at once. Anger. Sadness. Love. Confusion. Hope. Hi, he said, voice barely a whisper. I didn't say anything. He held up a crumpled envelope. Yellowed at the edges. Like he carried it around for months. I wrote this 6 months ago, he said. I couldn't find you. I thought maybe you'd read it if I left it here. I didn't take it. I was frozen. He didn't push. He just gently placed it on the floor between us like it was a damn offering and stepped back. Read it when you're ready, he said. Then he turned around. And walked away. Didn't beg. Didn't cry. Didn't ask to come inside. Just left. I stood there for what felt like hours, staring at the envelope like it was some cursed artifact. Eventually, I picked it up. The handwriting was his. Messy. Slanted. Familiar. My hands trembled as I pulled the letter out. I read the first line and nearly collapsed. I lied to you. But not the way you think. He explained everything. The text I saw? It wasn't from a lover. It was from a woman named Jenna. She was his half-sister. One I never knew existed. They'd only recently connected after his mom, who he hadn't spoken to in a decade, died suddenly and left behind a letter revealing a secret child. Jenna had been reaching out for weeks. Ethan hadn't told me because he was scared. Scared I'd think less of him. Scared I'd judge the mess of his family history. Scared I'd leave. He hadn't wanted to burden me. So he kept it a secret. And that night, the night I saw the message, he'd met with her for the first time. They talked for hours. About their mother. About growing up. About what they missed. She'd sent that message as a follow-up. An innocent, emotional thank you from a sister he never thought he'd meet. I read the letter 3 times. Each time, my stomach turned harder. He included proof. Screenshots of their messages. A photo of them together hugging outside a diner. The same flannel he wore home that night. And then, at the end of the letter, he wrote something that shattered me. You always said trust was everything. And I broke that. Not by cheating, but by hiding. I lost you because I didn't trust you enough to handle my truth. And that's on me. I dropped the letter, sat on the floor, and sobbed like I hadn't in years. Not because he lied, but because I left before giving him the chance to explain. And now he was gone again. Except this time, I ran after him. I didn't even grab my coat. Barefoot, hair a mess, heart pounding. I flew down the stairs of my building, 2 at a time. The Portland rain hit me like a slap. Cold, heavy, relentless. But I didn't care. I needed to find him. I sprinted into the street, scanning every direction. My eyes blurry with tears and rain. My lungs burned. My chest felt like it might cave in. Then I saw him, half a block away, walking slow, shoulders hunched, like the weight of the world was finally too much. Ethan! I screamed so hard my throat cracked. He stopped, turned, and when he saw me standing there, soaked to the bone, shaking, barefoot in the middle of the damn sidewalk, he didn't move. He just stared. I didn't say a word. I walked up to him, rain dripping down my face like 1,000 regrets, and I slapped him, hard, right across the face. His eyes widened. That's for not telling me. Then, without missing a beat, I grabbed his face in both hands and kissed him. Not soft, not romantic, desperate, raw, shaking, like I'd die if I didn't. When I finally pulled back, breathless, he whispered, "You read it." I nodded. "I believed it," I whispered. He didn't speak. His eyes were glassy, like he might break in half if I touched him again. "I'm sorry," I said, "for leaving, for not asking, for not trusting you." "I'm sorry," he said, "for giving you a reason not to." And just like that, we were back. Not fixed, not whole, but back. The walk back to my apartment was quiet. We didn't hold hands. We didn't say much. But something passed between us in the silence. A truce, a thread, a second chance. We stayed up all night, drank tea, talked, cried, laughed a little. He told me everything about Jenna, about their mom, about the letters, the pain, the anger, the guilt. I listened, this time really listened. And then I told him about the year without him. The nights I stared at the ceiling wondering if I made the biggest mistake of my life. The men I tried to date but couldn't even look in the eye. The ache, the longing, the regret. We didn't sleep. By sunrise we were lying on my floor, staring at the cracked ceiling, holding hands like teenagers. "Do you still love me?" he asked, voice barely audible. I turned to him, tears already rising again. "I never stopped." He nodded, closed his eyes. "Then let's fix this." I squeezed his hand. "We start over. No lies, no secrets, just truth. Even if it's ugly. Even if it hurts," he said. "Especially if it hurts." And that morning, April 14th, 7:42 a.m., we decided to get married again. Not out of romance, out of choice, out of growth, out of a love that refused to die. Even after everything, even after me, we got married again. Not in some big church, not on a beach, no white dress, no flowers, no guests, just us, at a courthouse in downtown Portland, a month after that night on the floor. He wore a navy button-up. I wore jeans and a thrifted blouse. My hair was still damp from the morning rain. But when the judge asked if I took him, again I said yes like it was oxygen. And this time, I meant it in a whole new way, because now I knew who I was marrying. Not just the sweet man who danced with me at a wedding, but the man with scars, with secrets, with pain, with shame. And still I wanted him. We went out for burgers after. Sat in a booth, holding hands like newlyweds, greasy fries between us. I caught him staring at me and I said, "What?" He just shook his head and whispered, "I didn't think I'd ever get this back." I smiled. "You didn't. You got something better." He nodded slowly. But that day was just the beginning. Starting over wasn't easy. We moved in together again, this time into a tiny apartment near the river. I kept waitressing. He picked up contract jobs. We were broke again, tired again, but this time, we were honest. Too honest sometimes. We argued more at first. Everything we'd bottled up came pouring out. There were nights he slept on the couch. Nights I cried into the pillow. Nights we almost gave up again. But we didn't. Because love isn't just what you feel. It's what you do. And we were doing the work. About 2 months into our new life, I finally met Jenna. He'd been nervous about it. Said she was intense. Private. A little damaged from her own past. We met at a diner. She looked nothing like Ethan. She was petite, pale, with jet black hair and these ice-cold blue eyes that studied me like I was a stranger in a war zone. I stuck out my hand. "Hi, I know who you are," she said. I blinked. Ethan shot her a warning look. But then she smiled. "You left him. Good. He needed that." Okay. Not the warmest welcome, but fair. Over greasy eggs and coffee, I got to know her. Turns out she'd had a rough life. Foster homes. Abusive stepdad. Drugs. Rehab. She only found out about Ethan when their mom died and he was the only family she had left. "I wasn't trying to mess up your marriage," she said bluntly. "I didn't even know he had a wife." I nodded. "I know that now." She stared at me for a long time, then said, "You broke him." I swallowed. "Yeah," I said. "I did. But you also put him back together." Silence stretched between us. And then she said something that stayed with me forever. "You didn't come back because you needed him. You came back because you were finally ready to see him." And she was right. Because I had been blind before. Blind to his pain. His fears. His family trauma. But not anymore. That day, Jenna hugged me. It was awkward. Quick. But real. And I felt something shift. But just as we were starting to build this new life, this fragile, messy, beautiful thing, the past came knocking again. And this time it wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a truth even Ethan didn't know. A truth that would tear him apart. The letter came on a Thursday. No return address. Just our names scribbled in shaky handwriting. Ethan almost threw it out, thinking it was junk. But something made him pause. He opened it at the kitchen table while I was folding laundry. I'll never forget the look on his face. His hands went still. His eyes widened. Then he stood up so fast his chair tipped over and walked out the front door without saying a word. I called after him. He didn't answer. Just vanished. I picked up the letter. Read the first line. And my heart stopped. "Ethan, your father isn't dead. He's in Oregon State Penitentiary. And he wants to see you." The page slipped from my hands. Ethan had told me his dad died when he was 9. Drunk driver. Car accident. Closed casket funeral. That's what he believed his whole life. But it was a lie. A lie his mother took to her grave. I found him 3 hours later. At the edge of the river. Just standing there, staring into the water like he wanted to throw himself in. "Talk to me," I begged. He didn't look at me. "He's alive," he whispered. "He's been in prison. My whole damn life." I wrapped my arms around him from behind. He didn't move. "I don't understand," he said. "Why would she lie about that? Why tell me he was dead?" I didn't have an answer. All I knew was the man I loved twice now was unraveling. And I couldn't fix it this time. That night, he barely spoke. He just sat on the couch, staring at the letter like it was a bomb. I didn't push him. I just stayed close. Held his hand. Made him tea. Sat in the dark with him. At 3 a.m. he finally said, "I need to know the truth." He nodded. "Even if it kills me." We made the call the next morning. Turns out it was real. His father, Daniel Ross, was imprisoned for attempted murder and assault with a deadly weapon. Had been there for over 25 years. No parole. No visitors. Until now. He'd been writing letters for years. To Ethan. To his mom. Never got responses. Then, when their mother died, he found out Ethan was alive. Married. Living in Portland. One of the prison volunteers, a woman named Teresa, had helped him track Ethan down. She was the one who sent the letter. Ethan didn't sleep for days. Didn't eat. Didn't talk. Then one morning he said, "I need to go. To see him. To end this." I offered to come. He shook his head. "I need to do this alone." I didn't fight him. I just hugged him like it might be the last time. And the next day he got on a bus to Salem. And I waited. Alone. Scared. Praying that whatever truth was waiting behind those prison walls wouldn't shatter him beyond repair. He came back, different. Not broken. Not angry. Just quiet. He dropped his bag on the floor, walked into the apartment, and sat down at the edge of the bed like he'd aged 10 years in a single day. I sat across from him, waiting. He looked up at me with eyes that didn't look like his, and said he tried to kill her. Silence. He didn't need to say who. I already knew. His mother, the woman who raised him, lied to him, protected him, and survived him. What happened? I asked gently. He exhaled slowly. He beat her. For years. And I guess she hid it pretty well. I don't remember much, just yelling. Slamming doors. Bruises, she said, were from falling down the stairs. My throat tightened. He looked away, jaw clenched. One night he got drunk. Came home in a rage. I was in bed. He dragged her outside. Started hitting her in the driveway. She tried to run. He followed her with a tire iron. I covered my mouth. A neighbor called the cops, he continued. They found him with the weapon still in his hands. She was unconscious. Broken ribs. Crushed jaw. He thought she was dead. But she survived, I whispered. Barely. And she told everyone he died? He nodded. She didn't want me to live my life haunted by the monster he was. So she erased him. I let the silence settle. Heavy. Sharp. Then I asked the question I was scared to even say out loud. Why did he want to see you? Ethan's eyes burned. He said he was sorry. A bitter laugh escaped his lips. Said prison changed him. That he found God. That he writes poetry now. He scoffed. 25 years in a cage and suddenly he's a saint. Do you believe him? Ethan paused. No, he said. But I listened. Because I needed to see for myself that the man who haunted my mother's nightmares was just a weak, pathetic old man behind glass. And was he? He nodded slowly. Yeah, he was. He looked up at me and for the first time in days I saw something behind his eyes. Clarity. I told him I forgive him, Ethan said. Not for him. For me. Because I'm done carrying it. A lump rose in my throat. I'm proud of you, I whispered. He nodded once, then stood up, came over, and wrapped his arms around me so tight I could barely breathe. I don't want his legacy, he said against my shoulder. I want a new one. With you. And in that moment I realized something. All the pain. All the lies. All the heartbreak. It hadn't destroyed him. It had refined him. Burned away the lies. The shadows. The silence. And left behind the man he was always meant to be. Not his father's son. Not his past's prisoner. My husband. The one I married. Twice. And now truly new. We started going to therapy. Couples. Individual. Even one joint session with Jenna which ended in tears and an awkward group hug in the parking lot. But it helped. Every buried emotion, every sharp edge, every unspoken fear, we dragged them all out into the light. It wasn't pretty. Some days we left the office feeling raw and exposed. Other days we left holding hands tighter than ever. Ethan had a lot to unpack. The betrayal from his mom. The truth about his father. The guilt from our first marriage falling apart. And the weight of being the good one in a bloodline of monsters. But every time he stumbled, I was there. And every time I doubted us again, which I'll admit I still did sometimes, he reminded me we weren't who we used to be. Not anymore. One night, 3 months after the prison visit, we were sitting on the fire escape eating gas station donuts, watching the lights of the city. He was quiet. Then he said, "Do you ever think about leaving Portland?" I raised an eyebrow. Like, moving? He nodded. Where? He looked out at the skyline. I don't know. Somewhere quieter. Somewhere new. A real second chance. I leaned back on my elbows. I've started over so many times, Ethan. I don't want to run again. I'm not talking about running, he said. I'm talking about choosing. That word stuck with me. Choosing. So much of our past had been survival. Reaction. Escape. What if for once we just chose? Chose peace. Chose something fresh. Chose us on purpose. 2 weeks later, we packed our lives into a U-Haul and drove south. Landed in a sleepy little town outside Sacramento. Found a cottage with cracked tiles and wild roses in the yard. The kind of place you fix up with your hands and your heart. It was the first home that felt earned. Ethan started his own business, small-time renovations, handyman work. Honest labor with no one barking orders down his throat. I got a job at a local bookstore cafe. Learned how to make a killer flat white and got addicted to the smell of old pages and cinnamon scones. Our life slowed down. Not in a boring way. In a safe way. We grew. Together. We hosted Sunday dinners with neighbors. Took walks at sunset. Made love with the windows open and the crickets singing back up. I caught myself laughing more. Smiling without trying. One morning, while I was brushing my teeth, Ethan came in holding his phone. He looked nervous. I did something, he said. I spat out toothpaste and stared at him. Good something or bad something? He turned the screen toward me. It was an email confirmation. He'd signed us up for foster parent orientation. I blinked. You serious? He nodded. You said once you weren't ready to be a mom. That you didn't know if you ever could be. Yeah, I said, heartbeat spiking. He took my hand. I don't know if I'll be a good dad, but I know I've got love to give. So do you. Maybe there's a kid out there who doesn't need perfect people, just real ones. My throat closed up. All I could do was nod. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of love anymore. I was ready to live it. Foster parent training is nothing like what you expect. It's not all sad stories and paperwork. It's worse. It's sitting in a room full of strangers while someone asks you, what will you do if a child sets your curtains on fire? No, really. That was day 2. The training dug deep past the warm, fuzzy idea of helping kids. It hit the dark, gritty truths most people don't want to think about. These weren't babies looking for cuddles. These were children with scars, trauma, rage, and we had to prove we were strong enough to hold it. Ethan took it seriously. I could tell it scared him sometimes, the thought of opening our door to a stranger who might hate us just for existing. But he never backed down. And neither did I. By the end of the sessions, we were approved. Certified. Official. Then came the waiting. And that was the hardest part. Every time the phone rang, I jumped. Every time it didn't, I panicked. What if they changed their minds? What if we weren't good enough? What if we were fooling ourselves? Then, on a rainy Tuesday, the call came. A 16-year-old boy. Name, Lucas. Removed from a violent home. Multiple failed placements. History of running away. Trust issues. They warned us, don't expect gratitude. Don't expect connection. Just give him space. He arrived the next day. He barely looked at us. Just walked into the house with a backpack, sat on the couch, and put his hood up. Didn't speak. Didn't eat. Didn't even flinch when the dog next door barked like a chainsaw. That night, I heard Ethan whisper in the hallway, what if he hates us? And I whispered back, then we love him anyway. Weeks passed. Lucas kept to himself. He didn't break anything. Didn't yell. But he watched us. Every move. Every whisper. Like he was waiting for the mask to drop. We tried. God, we tried. We left food by his door. Gave him his own space. Invited him to movie night. Didn't push. And slowly, so damn slowly, he cracked. One night, I found him in the kitchen at 2 a.m. eating peanut butter out of the jar. He froze when he saw me. I just smiled and grabbed a spoon. We didn't talk. We just ate, side by side, in the dark. That was our first breakthrough. The next came when Ethan asked him to help fix the back porch steps. Lucas shrugged, grunted, but followed him outside. They spent hours out there. Didn't talk much. But by the end of it, Lucas was covered in sawdust and smiling just a little. Then came the day that nearly broke us all. He didn't come home from school. Vanished. Didn't answer his phone. Didn't tell anyone where he went. Panic gripped us like a vice. Every horrible scenario flashed through my mind, cops, hospitals, headlines. But Ethan? He didn't panic. He knew. He's not running from us, he said. He's testing if we'll come for him. And we did. We found him 2 towns over, sitting outside a skate park. Just sitting. Waiting. When he saw us, he didn't run. He just looked up and said, took you long enough. We drove home in silence. And when we got there, he walked into the house, dropped his backpack, and muttered, I guess I'll stay. That night, Ethan and I cried in bed. Quietly. Gratefully. Because we knew what that really meant. It wasn't just a kid agreeing to sleep under our roof. It was a broken soul whispering, I trust you. Everything was finally feeling real. Not perfect, but real. Lucas started opening up. Slowly. Like peeling bark off a tree layer by layer. He told us about his mom. How she used to sing to him when he was little. How she changed when her boyfriend moved in. How the yelling never stopped. How he learned to hide in closets, in silence, in himself. I didn't want to be like him, he said one night, eyes locked on the floor. But sometimes I get so mad I feel like I could explode. Ethan didn't flinch. He just nodded and said same. That night they stayed up until 3 a.m. fixing the lawnmower together. The next morning, Lucas made coffee. For both of us. No words. Just mugs on the counter. It was more than enough. But peace, I've learned, is always temporary. One Sunday afternoon, Ethan got a call. He stepped outside to take it, but I could tell from his face when he came back in it wasn't good. Who was it? I asked. He hesitated. Jenna. My stomach dropped. She rarely called. Texted, sure. Occasionally sent memes or dark jokes. But actual calls? Never. She said someone came looking for Lucas, he said quietly. Who? Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. His mom's boyfriend. The one who used to hit him. My skin went cold. How did he even find Jenna? She didn't say. Just that he asked a lot of questions. Described Lucas. Knew we were fostering a teenager. I sat down, heart pounding. Lucas had been getting better. Laughing more. Trusting more. Letting the light in. If this man showed up again, it could destroy all of it. We didn't tell Lucas right away. Didn't want to scare him. But 2 days later, he found the envelope. Taped to our front door. No name. Just a note scrawled in thick, angry letters. I want my kid back. You've got no idea what you're messing with. Lucas didn't speak for hours after that. Just stood in the kitchen, staring at the envelope, knuckles white. When he finally looked up, there were tears in his eyes. I'll leave, he said. Ethan stood. No. Lucas shook his head. You don't get it. He's crazy. He'll hurt you. Ethan walked over and grabbed his shoulders. I'm not afraid of him, he said. And you're not leaving. Not again. Lucas looked like he was about to argue, but then he did something he hadn't done since he moved in. He hugged Ethan. Tight. Fierce. Like he was clinging to a lifeline. And then he whispered, please don't let him take me. Ethan didn't say anything. He just held him tighter. The next day, we filed for emergency protection. Got the cops involved. Told the agency everything. They started digging. And what they found made my blood run cold. Lucas's mother's boyfriend? His real name was Bradley Cross. Multiple assault charges. Restraining orders. Suspected in 2 disappearances but never convicted. And now he wanted Lucas back? Over our dead bodies. Ethan installed cameras. Changed the locks. Slept with a baseball bat by the bed. But no matter what we did, I could feel it building. Something was coming. And none of us were ready for what happened next. It happened on a Friday. The kind of day that pretends to be normal. Lucas went to school. I worked a double shift at the bookstore. Ethan stayed home to finish patching the roof. We were just living. And then at 4:17 p.m. I got the call. It was Ethan. 3 words. He's here. Now. I nearly dropped my phone. Where's Lucas? He's not home yet, Ethan said, voice tight, controlled, but with that edge I knew too well, the one that only showed up when he was 1 second away from breaking. I'm calling the cops, I said, grabbing my bag. Already did. Don't do anything stupid. Silence. Then, he's not getting through that door. I drove like a maniac. Ran 3 red lights. Hit the curb pulling into our street. And when I got out I froze. There he was. Bradley Cross. Tall. Built like a truck. Leather jacket. Greasy blonde hair tied back. A face like cracked cement, cold, mean, dead-eyed. He was on our front lawn, screaming. He's my blood. You can't keep him from me. Ethan stood between him and the house. No bat. No weapon. Just him. Still. Firm. Unshaken. You need to leave, Ethan said. Or what? Bradley spat. You gonna throw hands with me, tough guy? Ethan didn't flinch. This kid's been through enough, he said. You want to be a man? Walk away. Bradley stepped forward. And I saw it. The twitch in his right hand. The way his jaw clenched. The flicker of something evil in his eyes. He wasn't here to talk. He was here to take. I moved fast. Got behind Ethan. Whispered, cops are 2 minutes out. Bradley saw me. Sneered. Oh, great. The little wife. You two play house with my kid and think you're heroes. Ethan stepped forward. And then he snapped. You laid a hand on him, you son of a bitch, Ethan growled. You terrorized him. You broke him. And now you're standing here thinking you've got rights. Bradley smirked. He's mine. No, Ethan said, chest heaving. He's ours. And I'd burn this whole goddamn house down before I let you touch him again. Bradley moved fast. Tried to swing. But Ethan was faster. 1 punch. Straight to the jaw. Bradley hit the ground like dead weight. And that's when Lucas pulled up in the school van. He stepped out. Saw the scene. His abuser on the lawn, unconscious. Ethan standing over him, fists clenched, breathing hard. Lucas didn't panic. He didn't scream. He just walked up to Ethan, looked down at the man who haunted his nightmares. And spit. Right on him. Then turned to Ethan and said the only thing that mattered. Let's go home. The cops came. Took Bradley away. Turns out there were new charges. Witness intimidation. Trespassing. Violation of protective order. And this time? They stuck. He was done. That night, we didn't celebrate. We didn't toast. We just sat on the couch. The 3 of us. Wrapped in blankets. Watching dumb cartoons. Safe. Together. I looked at Ethan. He looked at Lucas. And in that quiet moment, I realized something. He didn't just save that boy. He saved himself. The headlines came the next morning. Local foster father knocks out violent offender on front lawn. Some reporter dug up Ethan's mugshot from when he was 20, one bar fight, long before me, long before anything real. They ran it next to a blurry photo of Bradley in cuffs. But for once, the internet didn't eat us alive. The comments? They loved him. He's a damn hero. Good for him. More dads like this, please. It was the weirdest kind of fame. We didn't want it, but we couldn't ignore it. For Lucas, it was uncomfortable. People at school whispered. Teachers looked at him differently. A few even tried to thank him, which just made him shut down more. He hated being the center of attention. I'm not some rescue dog, he muttered one day, slamming his locker shut. I didn't get saved. I just got lucky. Ethan knelt down beside him on the porch that night and said, No, kid. You didn't get lucky. You got loved. There's a difference. Lucas didn't answer. But later that night, I found him hanging one of Ethan's old baseball caps on his bedroom wall, right next to his drawings. That meant something. Weeks passed. Bradley stayed locked up. Charges were piling. Lucas's caseworker said he wouldn't be bothering us again. We believed her. But just because the threat was gone didn't mean the fear disappeared. Lucas still had nightmares. Woke up shaking, gasping, sometimes crying but pretending he wasn't. I sat with him on the floor once, holding a mug of cocoa he wouldn't drink, and asked, What do you see when you close your eyes? He hesitated, then whispered, him dragging her down the stairs. My mom. Screaming. My chest shattered. You couldn't stop it, I said softly. You were just a kid. He stared at me. So were you, he said. When you left your husband. But you went back. That silenced me. Not because it hurt, but because it was true. Lucas was watching us. All the time. Not to see if we were perfect, but to see if we were real. And that day, I realized something terrifying. We weren't just healing him. He was healing us. The fear. The shame. The doubt. It was disappearing, piece by piece, every time we chose to stay. One night, while we were cleaning the kitchen, Ethan looked at me and said, I want to adopt him. I froze. Are you sure? He nodded. We don't have to ask him yet. I want to know it's on the table. That we're all in. Forever. And then he looked at me like he had the night we got remarried. You still with me? I smiled. Always. We didn't rush it. We waited. Waited until Lucas stopped flinching when someone raised their voice. Until he made a joke at dinner and laughed at it without looking around to see if it was okay. Until he walked into the living room on a random Tuesday, sat down next to Ethan, and muttered, If I say yes, does that make you my dad? Ethan didn't cry. But I did. Hard. Because in that one, broken, brave sentence he gave us everything. A name. A bond. A second life. The adoption process was brutal. Paperwork. Background checks. Home visits. More paperwork. More questions. Have you ever been arrested? Any past trauma that might impact parenting? Are you mentally and emotionally stable to care for a child with behavioral challenges? Ethan answered everything. Honestly. Even the parts that hurt. He told them about the bar fight. The prison visit. The therapy. The journey back to me. They nodded. Took notes. But one thing stuck out. A single question from the county rep. Have you ever been in contact with your father since the visit at Oregon State? Ethan paused. Once he said, A letter. He sent it after. Do you still have it? No. I burned it. She looked up. Why? He looked her straight in the eyes and said, Because I'm done being his son. It should have ended there. But life doesn't tie itself in bows. 2 weeks before the adoption court date, we got a call. Blocked number. It was Teresa, the prison volunteer who'd helped Daniel, Ethan's father, send that first letter. She sounded frantic. He's dying, she said. Stage 4 cancer. Weeks, maybe days. Ethan went cold. I'm sorry, she added, but he's asking for you. Every day. I watched Ethan's face twist with something I hadn't seen in months. That old war. Rage. Grief. Guilt. No, he said. He's had enough of me. And hung up. But it wasn't over. 3 days later, another letter arrived. This one, handwritten. No stamp. Someone had dropped it off. It was short. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just need to tell you one thing. Something I should have told you the day you were born. You're not who you think you are. Ethan stared at those words for an hour. He didn't open the rest. Didn't want to. But I could see it eating him alive. What did it mean? Was it a lie? A manipulation? Or something real? Maybe he means emotionally, I offered. Like, you're not the violent man he was. But Ethan shook his head. No. This is deeper. Then he whispered something I'll never forget. What if I'm adopted? The room went still. I felt the floor shift beneath us. He laughed bitterly. I mean, wouldn't that be something? Two fatherless kids adopting a third. I reached for his hand. Blood doesn't make family, Ethan. This, I gestured around the room, this does. But he couldn't let it go. He needed to know. So, 1 week before we were supposed to stand before a judge and become Lucas's legal parents, Ethan drove back to the prison. Alone. One last time. To hear the truth. To end the ghost story that had been chasing him since he was a boy. And when he came back, he wasn't the same. Because what he found out in that prison cell changed everything. He walked in the door and dropped to his knees. Didn't say a word. Didn't take off his coat. Just knelt there silent. Shaking. Like the truth was still stuck in his throat. I rushed to him, fell beside him, grabbed his face. Ethan. What happened? He looked up at me and I swear. I've never seen eyes like that. Haunted. Hollow. Changed. He wasn't my father, he said, voice barely a whisper. My heart stopped. What? Daniel Cross. He's not my biological dad. I sat back, stunned. Then who? Ethan pulled something from his coat pocket. A photo. Faded, folded. Torn at the edges. It was of a young woman, maybe in her 20s, holding a baby. She had wild red hair and sad, tired eyes. Behind her was a man. Tall. Dark-skinned. Lean build. Tattooed arms. That's him, Ethan said, placing the photo in my hands. My real father. I blinked, confused. Who are they? He swallowed. My mom had an affair. Daniel found out. The guy disappeared a month later. She swore he ran. Left her. But he didn't. Ethan nodded. Daniel killed him. Buried him in the woods behind their first house. Told my mom if she ever said a word, he'd do the same to her. I covered my mouth. Oh my God. She was pregnant with me, Ethan said. And she knew. She knew Daniel wasn't my dad. But she stayed. Lied. Raised me under his roof. Let him beat her. Let me believe he was mine. Why would she? Fear, he cut in. Survival. Maybe shame. He looked back down at the photo. I asked Daniel why he was telling me now. Why after all these years? He paused. Know what he said? I didn't answer. Because he's scared to die with the truth stuck inside him. We sat in silence. Then Ethan laughed, bitter and hollow. All this time. I was afraid I'd become him. That it was in my blood. That I'd turn into a monster like Daniel. He looked up at me. But he was never in me. Not even a piece of him. Tears filled my eyes. Then who are you, Ethan? He took a long, shaky breath. I'm the son of a murdered man. A woman who lied to survive. A stranger with a kind smile in a faded photo. He reached for my hand. And I'm your husband. Lucas's almost dad. The man who chose love over rage. I held him. Tight. Because he wasn't lost anymore. He was reborn. That night, we sat with Lucas and told him the truth. Not all of it, not the murder. Not yet. Just enough to let him know Ethan had faced a storm. And survived. Lucas didn't say much. Just listened. Then nodded once. Then, in a quiet voice, he said, You know, you don't have to be someone's blood to be their family. Ethan looked at me. I looked at him. And we knew he was ready. We all were. Adoption day was coming. And nothing, not even the ghosts, could stop it now. Adoption day. I never thought a courtroom could feel like a church. But that's exactly what it was. Sacred. Quiet. Full of hope. The walls weren't beautiful. The carpet was stained. The judge looked exhausted. But none of that mattered. Because we were ready. Lucas wore a black button-up shirt and dark jeans. No tie. He said it made him feel like he was at a funeral. I don't want to bury anything today, he mumbled. So we skipped it. Ethan wore his grandfather's old watch. The one that had survived 2 wars and a flood. He said if it could keep ticking, so could we. I wore the same blouse I wore the second time we got married. For luck. The judge called our names. We stood. She looked down at the papers, then at us, then at Lucas. And asked, Do you want to be adopted by these people? Lucas didn't even blink. Yes. Why? He looked at her. Then turned to us. And said, because they didn't just give me a home. They taught me how to be one. I broke. Right there in the courtroom. Ugly crying. Snot. All of it. Ethan was stone-faced, but I saw the tear he wiped fast. The judge smiled, stamped the papers, and said the words that sealed everything. Congratulations. You're a family now. People clapped. Our caseworker cheered. Some old guy in the back gave us a thumbs up. It was perfect. But as we walked out of the courthouse, sunlight hitting us like a blessing, Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. Froze. Everything okay? I asked. He handed it to me. It was a message. From Jenna. Someone's asking about Dad's photo. A reporter. You need to call me. Now. My stomach twisted. We hadn't told anyone about what Daniel confessed. Not even Jenna. We wanted to protect Lucas. Protect our peace. But now it was leaking. Ethan called her immediately. She answered on the first ring. There's a guy sniffing around our old neighborhood, she said. Says he's writing a book about small-town crimes that never made headlines. He found something. Like what? Ethan asked, voice tightening. A buried report. From 92. A missing man. Same town. Same year you were born. Same house. I felt my pulse in my ears. Daniel's victim. The man Ethan had feared was part of him. And now he had a name. I didn't tell him anything, Jenna said. But if the story breaks... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Because in one instant, everything we had built, the love, the healing, the family, was standing on a cliff again. And the past? It was coming for us. Fast. The reporter's name was Miles Granger. Freelance. Independent. Obsessed with cold cases. And he was already 3 steps ahead of us. By the time Ethan reached out, Miles had dug up the missing persons report, found a matching tattoo description from a witness, and unearthed a photo from a decades-old flyer. The man in the picture? Same one Daniel showed Ethan. Same one holding the baby in that faded photo. Ethan's biological father. His name was Marcellus Ray. Disappeared October 1992. Last seen near the woods behind Daniel's old house. Never found. The cops didn't dig too deep back then. No body. No confession. Just a troubled domestic situation and a woman who refused to talk. That woman? Ethan's mom. Miles wanted a quote. He wanted the son's side of the story. Ethan refused. But it didn't matter. 2 days later, the article went up. Secrets Beneath the Soil, What Happened to Marcellus Ray? And just like that, we were front page on a dozen niche crime blogs. Reddit threads popped up. TikToks. People speculating. Making theories. Lucas came home from school with his hoodie up and his jaw clenched. You said we left all this behind, he muttered. We tried, I said. He stared at Ethan. Did you know they'd find him? The reporters? Ethan shook his head. Lucas turned away. But before he disappeared into his room, he said something low. Something that chilled me to the bone. Maybe I should have stayed gone when I ran. That night, I found Ethan on the porch sitting in the dark. He was holding the photo again. Staring at the man he never got to know. I can't run anymore, he said. I need to know where he is. I sat beside him. You think he's really buried out there? Ethan didn't answer. But his silence said everything. The next day he made a call. To the police. He told them about Daniel's confession. About the body. The location. And then he did something I didn't expect. He told Miles. Why? I asked. Because if the truth is coming out, he said, I want to be the one to say it. It exploded. Detectives brought cadaver dogs to the woods behind Daniel's old house. News vans followed. Volunteers dug. And 3 days later they found remains. Partial. Decomposed. But with a bracelet still on the wrist. Etched with the name Marcellus. DNA confirmed it a week later. The story made national news. And just like that, Ethan's face was everywhere. Talk shows. Podcasts. True crime panels. They called him the son of the silenced. People wanted interviews. Book deals. Film rights. He turned it all down. Except one. Lucas. He sat Ethan down on the couch, looked him straight in the eye, and said, I want to tell your story. Ethan blinked. You. Lucas nodded. As a school project. But bigger. A short film, maybe. Something real. Not for fame. For people like me. Ethan hesitated. You sure? Lucas grinned. You think I don't know what it's like to carry someone else's mess on your back? And that was it. Ethan said yes. Not because he wanted the spotlight, but because he finally understood something. Telling the truth doesn't keep you chained. It sets you free. He turned our tiny guest room into a production studio. Taped blankets to the walls for soundproofing. Borrowed a cheap mic from school. Downloaded editing software and taught himself how to use it in 2 days. He called the project Becoming Ethan. And it was more than just a school film. It was a search. An excavation. A boy digging through the rubble of another man's life to understand how someone survives what Ethan did and still chooses to love. He started with us. Sat us down. Rolled the camera. Asked questions like a pro. What was it like marrying the same person twice? What changed between the first time and the second? Were you ever scared he might be like Daniel? I answered honestly. No filters. I told him about the heartbreak, the fear, the shame. The night I left. The day I ran after him. The man I lost and the better man I found. Ethan's interview was quieter. More deliberate. He didn't look at the camera much. He talked about trauma like it was an old coat he finally stopped wearing. And then, something unexpected happened. Lucas started interviewing Jenna. He set up the mic in her garage, surrounded by old tools and dust and grief. She was blunt, didn't sugarcoat anything. He was a monster, she said, and I hated my mom for staying with him. But I get it now. She was terrified. Then she paused, looked off camera, and said, "But you know what scares me more than anything? That I'll die before I forgive her." The silence that followed that line? Chilling. Even Lucas didn't speak. But the real shock came later. When Lucas asked Ethan if he wanted to include footage from the prison visit, the first one, the one where Daniel told him the truth. "I didn't record it," Ethan said. "I know," Lucas replied. "But someone else did." He opened his laptop, pulled up an email, a file. It was from Teresa, the prison volunteer. Apparently, she'd recorded the conversation for security reasons, but never submitted it to the staff. She kept it, said it felt important. She sent it to Lucas after reading about the documentary. Ethan hesitated, stared at the screen. "You don't have to," Lucas said. Ethan pressed play. It was crackly, low volume, but you could hear it all. Daniel's voice, gravelly, sick, fading. "I didn't kill him out of jealousy. I did it 'cause he said he was gonna take you. Said he was gonna raise you right. Called me a waste. A drunk. Said he'd fight for custody. Your mother told him to back off, but he wouldn't. I snapped. Buried him and raised you like mine. Never told you 'cause I knew what that truth would do to you." Then the final line. "But you turned out better than me. Way better. That's on your mom. And maybe a little on you." When it ended, Ethan sat back, eyes red, and whispered, "I needed that." Lucas didn't say much, just closed the laptop, and said, "That's the last scene." That weekend, he uploaded the final cut. No fancy graphics, no music, just truth. Raw, honest, broken and beautiful. Within 48 hours, it had over 200,000 views. People commented things like, "This changed how I see trauma. I didn't cry until Jenna spoke." Lucas, if you're reading this, you've got a gift. And my favorite, "I thought I was alone. I'm not. Thank you." Lucas didn't smile at the numbers. He smiled at that, because that was the point, to take Ethan's pain and turn it into healing. Not just for us, but for everyone. The letter came in a plain white envelope. No return address. Just Lucas's name, handwritten in tight, careful print. He found it in the mailbox on a Sunday. Brought it inside like it was radioactive. Dropped it on the table and stared at it. Didn't open it. Didn't touch it again for hours. Ethan and I didn't push. By sunset, it was still there, untouched. Silent. Heavy as a brick. Finally, Lucas sat down. Picked it up. His hands trembled. "Can I read it out loud?" he asked, barely above a whisper. We nodded. He opened the envelope, pulled out a single sheet, unfolded it, and started reading. "Lucas, I know I'm the last person you ever want to hear from, but I need to say something before I disappear forever." My stomach dropped. I knew who it was before he even said the name. His mother. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I failed you. I let that man hurt you. I let it go on too long. I told myself I was protecting you, but the truth is, I was scared. Scared of losing what little I had. Scared of being alone. Scared of seeing my own weakness in your eyes. I saw the news. I saw the documentary. You're strong, brave, smart. You always were. And now you have people who deserve you, who protect you, who love you. I'm not writing to beg for another chance. I just want you to know this. I never stopped loving you, even when I didn't know how to show it. I'm going to rehab, again. Maybe it won't stick. Maybe it will. But no matter what happens to me, I need you to know. You were the best thing I ever had, and the biggest thing I lost. If you ever want to write back, here's the address. If not, I'll understand. I'll never reach out again. Be happy. You deserve that. Mom. Lucas finished reading. and the room went still. He folded the letter, set it down, then stood up and walked into his room. Didn't say a word. Didn't have to. I looked at Ethan. He was pale. His jaw clenched the same way it had when his mother's secrets spilled into his life. He whispered, "She's handing him the same weight mine gave me." We didn't sleep much that night. Around 2 a.m., I heard a soft knock at our bedroom door. Lucas stood there, blanket over his shoulders, eyes red but dry. He walked in, sat between us like a little kid again. "I don't know what to do," he whispered. "You don't have to," I said. "Not tonight." "But what if she means it? What if she's really trying?" Ethan leaned in. "Then she'll still be there. Whether you write today or next year or never." Lucas nodded, then looked at both of us. "What would you do?" Ethan didn't answer right away. Then he said I'd write back. Not for her. For me. To say what needs to be said. Then I'd wait. And watch. People can change. But they gotta prove it. Lucas thought for a long time. Then whispered, "Okay." The next morning he sat at the kitchen table. Pen in hand. Letter in front of him. And he started writing. Not a reply. Not forgiveness. Just his truth. And whether she read it or not, he was free. 1 year later. Our house was louder. Not chaotic, but alive. Lucas had grown taller. His voice deeper. Hair longer. He called it his director era. He'd won 2 awards for becoming Ethan. A short doc festival and some online youth filmmaking grant. He used the money to buy a real camera and editing rig. He started mentoring other kids, teens in foster care who had stories but no way to tell them. We built him a tiny studio in the garage. Hung string lights. Installed sound panels. Made it his. He never called it a job. He called it purpose. Ethan, meanwhile, had become a bit of a local legend. People would stop him at the hardware store. "You're the guy from that documentary, right?" He'd smile politely. Say, "Yeah, that's me," and go right back to comparing drill bits. But he was different. Lighter. Stronger. He even joined a weekly support group for men who survived abusive homes. Didn't speak much at first. Then one night he shared everything. They asked him how he survived. He pointed to a photo of us on his phone and said, "I didn't. We did." As for me, I started writing. Not full-time. Just short essays. Reflections. Things I used to keep buried in journals now found life on the screen. People read them. Reached out. Said things like, "I left my husband too. And I'm thinking of going back." Or, "Thank you for reminding me that forgiveness isn't weakness." We weren't rich. We weren't perfect. But we were whole. And then one Saturday morning, someone knocked on our door. Not a delivery. Not a neighbor. When I opened it, I froze. It was her. Lucas's mother. Wearing a plain coat. Hair pulled back. A suitcase by her side. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. She looked smaller than I remembered. Her eyes clearer. But tired. "I'm not here to take anything," she said. "I just wanted to see if maybe you'd let me talk to him." I didn't respond right away. I studied her. Looked for signs. Was this a stunt? A relapse? A setup? But she wasn't shaking. Her voice didn't crack. And in her eyes, I saw something real. Regret. "I sent a few letters," she added. "Didn't hear back. But I'm clean. 16 months now. In a program. Working at a shelter. I miss my son." I nodded slowly. Then said, "You need to wait here." I went inside. Told Ethan. He didn't panic. He just called for Lucas. He came down the stairs in his socks, chewing toast, completely unaware of the emotional bomb waiting on our porch. I sat him down. Told him. His face froze. For a second I thought he'd run. But he didn't. He just said, "Let me see her." He stepped outside. Closed the door. We didn't listen in. Didn't peek through the curtains. Just waited. 23 minutes later, he came back in. Eyes red. But peaceful. "What did she say?" I asked gently. He shrugged. "Nothing I didn't already know." "Are you okay?" He nodded. Thought for a moment. Then said, "She's not a villain. She's just broken. Like I was. Like we all were." Ethan pulled him into a hug. And for the first time since we met him, Lucas said it out loud. "Thanks, Dad." I turned away so they wouldn't see me cry. But in that moment, everything came full circle. Love had done what pain couldn't. It healed. 6 months later, Lucas graduated. Not just with good grades. With honors. He gave the student speech, black robe, gold stole, tassel swinging. Stood in front of 300 kids and said, "I used to think survival was the goal. But survival is just the start. Real living begins when you stop running and start staying. Ethan cried. Openly. Didn't even pretend to wipe it away. I clapped so hard my hands stung. After the ceremony, Lucas took photos with us, with his friends, with his old caseworker who came just to hug him and whisper, "Look at you now." That night, we threw a backyard party. Fairy lights. Burgers. A playlist made entirely by Lucas and titled "No Trauma, Just Vibes." We danced until the neighbors told us to turn it down. Lucas smiled the whole time. But later that night, as we cleaned up, he pulled Ethan aside. Said he needed to talk. I watched them from the porch. Ethan's shoulders tense at first. Then slowly relax. Lucas came back inside. Sat next to me on the couch. I think I'm ready to leave. My throat tightened. Leave? Not run, he said quickly. Just go. Try. Live somewhere new. Like you and Ethan did. I swallowed hard. Where? New York, he said, eyes glowing. There's a summer program. Documentary work. Scholarships. I got in. I blinked. You didn't even tell us you applied. He shrugged. Didn't think I get it? But now. I think I have to go. I nodded. Smiled through tears. You don't have to stay to be ours, Lucas. He looked down. Then back up. I know. 2 weeks later, we were at the airport. 3 backpacks. 1 goodbye. He hugged Ethan first. No words. Just 2 strong men holding on for dear life. Then he turned to me. You saved me, he whispered. I touched his cheek. No. You saved us. He smiled. All right. I'll call. I'll come back. You better. Then he turned. Walked through security. And just like that, he was gone. But it didn't feel like loss. It felt like legacy. That night, Ethan and I sat on the couch in silence. No more cartoons playing. No soft footsteps upstairs. No extra plate at dinner. Just us. Like it had started. Think we'll ever do it again? I asked. He looked at me. You mean foster another kid? I nodded. He leaned back. Exhaled. Only if you're still crazy enough to do it with me. I smiled. Always. And right then, in the quiet of our house, turned home. The doorbell rang. We looked at each other. Neither moved. Then again, ding-dong. Ethan stood. Opened the door. And on our porch was a social worker. Holding a small duffel bag. Beside her? A man. Maybe 30. Tired eyes. Hollow cheeks. Hands shaking. The social worker looked at Ethan. Said 3 words. He asked for you. Ethan turned pale. I stood beside him. Stared at the man on our porch. And my breath caught in my chest. Because I knew that face. It was Daniel's son. From another woman. Another life. Another lie. And just like that. Our story wasn't over. It was beginning again. He looked like Ethan. Not the Ethan I married the first time. Not even the second. But the boy he used to be. Raw. Angry. Starving for answers, for belonging, maybe even for love. His name was Micah. He was 29. Daniel's son from a woman none of us had ever heard of. A woman who died of an overdose 2 years ago. Micah had grown up bouncing between homes, juvie, shelters. He'd found Ethan's name online after the documentary went viral. He told the social worker if he turned out okay, maybe there's still hope for me. She brought him to us. Ethan stood there in the doorway, frozen. 2 men. Same blood. Same broken origin. Different stories. Micah didn't smile. Didn't ask to come in. Just said, I'm not here to crash your life. I just want to know what made you not end up like him. Ethan stepped back. Opened the door wider. Said, come in. I'll show you. And just like that, we began again. Micah was nothing like Lucas. He was older. Harder. Damaged in different ways. He had anger, deep, buried rage. The kind that didn't show up as yelling. The kind that simmered behind sarcasm and silence. He didn't trust us. Didn't believe kindness wasn't transactional. The first week, he barely spoke. The second, he tried to leave. Packed his bag. Got as far as the driveway. Ethan followed him. Said nothing. Just stood there in the dark. And finally, Micah snapped. Why do you even care? We're not brothers. You didn't even know I existed. Ethan didn't blink. Neither did Lucas, he said. Didn't stop me then. Micah looked down. I'm not him. I know, Ethan said. You're you. And that's enough. Micah stayed. Weeks passed. And one night, while I was folding laundry, I heard them talking in the kitchen. Micah, did you ever hate him? Ethan, every day. Micah, so how do you live with that? Ethan, I didn't. I let it go. So I could finally live without him. The next morning, Micah made breakfast. Burnt toast. Undercooked eggs. But he smiled when he handed me the plate. A real smile. Months later, Micah enrolled in community college. Studied social work. Said maybe he'd help kids like himself one day. We didn't sign papers this time. Didn't talk about adoption. But one night, as we ate dinner, he looked at me and said, "You're kind of like a mom, you know." I choked on my water. Ethan laughed so hard he nearly fell out of his chair. And Micah just grinned like he'd been waiting to say it. That Christmas, we got a letter. A real one. From Lucas. Postmarked New York. Inside was a photo, him in a tiny apartment, smiling beside two new friends, snow falling outside the window. And a note that read, "You built something out of nothing. I carry it with me every day. Love you both. And tell Micah he owes me a phone call." I taped the photo to the fridge, right next to the one from our courthouse wedding. And I stood there looking at them both, thinking about every version of us that had existed. The broken one. The healing one. The real one. Because that's what love is. It's not the fairy tale. It's not the vows or the dinners or the matching rings. It's showing up. Over and over. Even when it's hard. Even when it hurts. Even when you have every reason to walk away. And you choose to stay. That's the kind of love we built. Not perfect. Not painless. But powerful enough to turn ghosts into people. And people into family.